Hey there, card folks. Speedrobo here, and welcome to Vanguard Zero Basics. In this video, I will be going over some tips and tricks on how to get better at the game. This video is geared at people that already know how to play the game and the very starter level stuff. And so this is aimed more at people who want to up their competitiveness in Vanguard Zero and get better and climb ranks easier. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. The first thing we're going to cover is deck building. And when it comes to deck building, there's really two basic overarching rules. Regardless of what clan you're playing, it doesn't really matter which clan you pick. There's two core rules. Rule number one. If you have a ride chain, you want to use that ride chain. And the reason why you always want to use a ride chain is because it ups your consistency, it gives you free material, and it gives you free power. Generally, there's a few ride chains that do not increase your power, but that's fine. Also, they almost always end in an 11k base, which is very good and what you want. So, if you have a ride chain, you should be using it. Next very basic deck building rule is that you are going to want to play, in general, 9 draw and 4 heal. Why should you be playing 9 draw and 4 heal? Well, that is a very easy question to answer. And the answer is that draws are undeniably the best trigger in the entire game. Let's break it down. A draw trigger is always, no matter what, going to give you something. It is always going to give you value, no matter when you check it. First attack of the turn, last attack of the turn, drive, damage, it doesn't matter, you're always going to be drawing a card. And unlike in the original version of Card Fight Vanguard, there is no downside to playing draw triggers. In the actual game of Vanguard, draw triggers have 5,000 shield instead of 10,000 shield. Why? Because draws always give you a card and are always helpful. Critical triggers are not always helpful. Firstly, you have to check them during your drive check when your Vanguard is attacking your opponent's Vanguard, and if your Vanguard is at bare minimum 5,000 less than the opponent. If you are more than 5,000 less power than your opponent, the critical trigger does not help you in any way. So that's critical triggers having multiple activation conditions in order for them to be useful. And they aren't useful on damage check unless your opponent has more attacks coming, and those attacks are less than 10,000 power than your current Vanguard's power. Otherwise, they're just still going to hit you, and it doesn't do anything. Stand triggers, same story, only work during your turn if you've already had a rear guard attacked or rested somehow. If your opponent has a valid target for that rearguard with enough power to hit. Again, you got activation conditions on that. What's a draw trigger's activation condition? It shows up, boom, card in hand. If you can run the 9 draw, you need to run the 9 draw. There's only a very, very select handful of decks that do not want to run the 9 draw, and none of those decks are S tier, because draw is the best trigger. Period. So those are the two deck building rules you want to follow. Also, if you have a grade 3 that can cycle itself back into the deck, like Gancelot, make it your heal trigger so you have a recycling heal. And there you go, that's the basics of deck building. Ride chain, 9 draw, 4 heal. 4 perfect guard, recycling heal if you've got it. There you go. Next, we are going to be talking about how to up your gameplay. And there's 3 core things I want to cover today. 1, guard tiers. 2, attack orders to not drop heals. 3, When to use your retires on what targets. Right, looking at this hand and looking at this turn, how should I set up my field? Well, I want one column that's the same power as his intercept, one column that's the same power as his Vanguard, and one column that's 5,000 power greater than his Vanguard. This will allow me to clear the intercept and attack the Vanguard twice. So let's do it. This is going to be the column that's the same power as his Vanguard. This is going to be the column that's the same power as his intercept. And this is the column that's 5,000 power greater than his Vanguard. Now, how should I do my attack order? Well, clearly we start by clearing the intercept. Then the next question. I need to attack with this one first, for two reasons. One, attacking with your Vanguard now means that if you get a heal trigger, you'll heal. Two, as we set up our columns, this one's the same power, this one's 5,000 greater. Unfortunately, he got a trigger and we didn't, so all we can do is end the turn. Okay, once again, it's the start of the turn, and we need to figure out how to set up our board. Now, ideally in this situation where the opponent has two open rearguard circles, what you want is one row that's the same power as the opponent's Vanguard, one row that's 5,000 bigger than the opponent's Vanguard, and one row that's 10,000 bigger than the opponent's Vanguard. If you do this, and you do it right, you will be able to deal 3 damage to your opponent on your first attacking turn. And in this game, where you have no control over guarding or not guarding, damage tempo is everything. So here is our column that's going to be 10,000 greater. Here is our column that's going to be 5,000 greater. And here is our column that's equal. Assuming the opponent gets no triggers, and we get no triggers, or we each get 1 trigger, this will be a 3 damage turn. 1, 2, and 3. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you properly set up your columns for attacks. Okay, the next thing we're going to cover is setting up your attack order properly to not waste heal triggers. Let's get into it. Clearly, this column right here is going to be taking out the intercept. Then, both of these columns are only 5k greater than the opponent's Vanguard, not 10k. So the order in which we hit the opponent's Vanguard with these doesn't matter, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. If we attack and hit the opponent's Vanguard with our rearguard first, they'll be at 4 damage, while we'll be at 3. Then if we attack with our Vanguard second and get a heal trigger, that heal trigger is now wasted. But if we swap that and attack with our Vanguard first and get a heal trigger, that heal will activate. Let's take a look. While that wasn't a heal trigger, it did not change the outcome of the turn at all, and we're still going to be able to deal 2 damage at the Vanguard. And that, fine card folk at home, is how you properly think about your attack order and set up so that you don't waste any heal triggers. And finally, for today, we will be playing a clip from a recent live stream of mine where I cover the concept of using your retires, how to know what to retire, and when with retire skills. Boosting Vanguard. There's Amon, dude. There is Amon. And then what you can do is you can easily bump your soul by converting grade 3s you can't normally use into dead stuff. Or you can just call freaking Berserk Dragon, my guy. Heck yes. This is looking really good. Yeah, just do it again. Now, the one problem with doing it again is that you're not going to be able to get a bunch of attacks on my Vanguard. So instead of using that Gwyn the Reaper to kill the Intercept, I would have used that your second Gwyn the Ripper to kill a back row. Or not use that Gwyn the Ripper at all and instead used your Amon Vanguard skill to kill the back row. Because see, currently this card doesn't do anything, right? Where if you had killed my Vanilla with the first Gwyn, and then not use that second Gwyn, and instead used Amon twice to kill off my back row, use your Gwyn to attack into Flute, then do your 2 attacks on my Vanguard, you would have gotten the same amount of damage through, and I would have 0 cards on board, and to top it off, you would have had 5 cards in Soul. You could have even used your Vermilion Gatekeeper at that time, which would have increased all of your Amon beaters on your grade 1s and grade 2s to 9k, and that would have been the play. And that's all for today, card folks. Thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. And if you would like to see anything covered on a future episode of this series, if it winds up being a series, put that down in the comments as well. I'm very interested to hear in what you have to say. I've been Speedrobo, and I'll see you next time.